But I think you fail when you give up on something that you still feel energy for and you still know is something you should do. I think if I get to a point where I don't see a path forward, I hope that I have the sense to stop and to accept that. But that just hasn't been the case. And I don't see it being the case for at all ever. But I think if you get to a place where there's no more momentum and you're no longer happy doing what you're doing, I think that's when maybe it's a sign to give up. But the perseverance for me just comes from getting out there and talking to women and reading the reviews on our website of people saying this has changed their life, the best bra they've ever worn, and how genius the back bands are. And I'm like, I thought so too. I don't know why this didn't happen sooner.
Welcome to the In Factor, conversations with entrepreneurs who started, stumbled, and succeeded. I'm your host, Dr. Rebecca White, and I'm excited that you've decided to join us for today's episode. You know, one of the most powerful lessons I've learned through the years of studying and teaching entrepreneurship is that success does not belong solely to those who know the most. It belongs to those who are most willing to learn. And not just a few times, but when it's convenient, but continually, and especially when it's hard. I was recently reminded of a concept that's foundational to the entrepreneurial mindset and to this learning process, and it's called intellectual humility. This idea has deep roots in entrepreneurship education, and it brought to mind one of my own mentors, Dr. Jeffrey Timmons, the visionary behind Babson College's award-winning entrepreneurship program. Jeff used to say that entrepreneurship is about embracing ambiguity, uncertainty, and risk while remaining curious and open to what the world is trying to teach you. In my book, See, Do, Repeat, The Practice of Entrepreneurship, I talk about intellectual humility as one of the essential competencies of an entrepreneurial mindset. It's the ability to recognize that we don't know everything and that our beliefs might not be the whole truth. Duke University psychologist Mark Leary puts it simply, intellectual humility is realizing that what you believe could be wrong. I take it even further. It's also having the confidence to adjust when new insights emerge. So how do we become more intellectually humble? Let me offer a humble recommendation. 4 simple, but I believe powerful practices to cultivate this mindset. The first one is one you probably heard from your mother. Listen more and listen better. There's a reason why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? As entrepreneurs, sometimes we're so anxious to talk, we forget to listen. So start by listening more and becoming a better listener. Ask questions a lot and ask better questions. It's not about getting answers. It's about getting deeper insights. So really focus on digging in and asking questions. Most people love to talk and they love to talk about themselves and the things they know. And there's so much you can learn when you start to ask questions. Pay attention to yourself. How do you react? And notice when you start to feel defensive, because when that happens, there's probably something there for you to learn. Something important is happening. And then finally, I recently heard this, be curious, not furious. When something happens and you start to see that your world view or what you thought you knew may not be accurate, don't get angry. Ask, what can I learn here? Now, for entrepreneurs, we're often going to have those situations when things don't go the way we want, those things that we call failures or obstacles. So how can we stay curious and not get furious? And those practices aren't just for academic reflection. They're tools for real world entrepreneurship. Today's guest, Danielle Rushton, is a shining example of what it looks like in action. Danielle is the founder of Wherewithal, a company on a mission to reinvent the bra, to make it more comfortable, confidence boosting, and empowering. She launched this venture with her partner in our incubator program at the Loth Entrepreneurship Center here at the University of Tampa, where I serve as the director and Walter Chair of Entrepreneurship. She and her team spent a year in our ecosystem and then bravely stepped out to continue building their business with the help of other incredible programs across the Tampa Bay region. And just recently, Wherewithal reached a major milestone. Her products are now being carried by Target. That's a huge step forward and a well-earned one. In our conversation, Danielle talks candidly about her learning journey, about listening to her customers, seeking feedback from experienced designers, and adapting to the lessons that came her way. I remember some of those early moments when she asked tough questions and leaned into the discomfort of not having all the answers. That's intellectual humility at work. So whether you're a student, a founder, or someone navigating your own life changes, I hope this episode encourages you to listen more deeply, question more thoughtfully, pay attention to what you feel, and stay curious, because that's how we grow, and that's how we succeed, and that's how we practice the in factor. So now let's dive in to Danielle Rushton's episode and learn all about her journey with Wherewithal. Hi, Danielle, and welcome to the In Factor.
Hi, Dr. White. It's so good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on the show. You and I met at least 6 or 7 years ago when you were first launching your company, which has gone through some iterations, but has stayed focused on one problem, which you're continuing to solve and work on. But it was so much fun to get to know you when you were at the University of Tampa and going through the incubator program that we have there. And it's just so fun now to reconnect, because I think, as we talked about, I was launching this podcast about the time you were launching your business. So we've both been doing this for a little while, and it's just fun to have it come full circle and have you join me today.
It really is. I can't say enough good things about the entrepreneur program at the University of Tampa. I think that's really, the incubator program there is really where we got to sit and incubate on this idea, and where it really was a launching pad into everything for our business since. So I cannot thank you enough for that program and for having, I think we were fruitful at the time, and now we're Wherewithal. So even went through a brand name change, and UT was there the entire time. So I just can't say enough good things about that program and how thankful I am to be part of it.
Well, thank you for that. And I actually remember, I think I met you and your partner at the time when you were at an event at the University of South Florida, and I was speaking maybe. I think you all had a question about manufacturing and how to manufacture. And I know that was some of what you worked on as you were part of our university program. So, and I know you've been part of the Embark Collective and other programs in Tampa Bay. So I think you've got a great story to tell, and in how you've really collaborated and worked with a lot of the resources available to you in the ecosystem.
Absolutely. Tampa is full of resources, which is something I didn't know initially. UT really did open that world up for us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, when they get started, they really feel like they have to know what to do. And of course, you've got to get started, but there are a lot of resources to help you along the way. And we can get into some of that. But let's back up, Danielle. Talk to us. What is, for our listeners, what is your company now, Wherewithal, all about? And how did you get into this business?
Yeah. So Wherewithal is a bra company that has redesigned the bra for what women need today. Essentially, 90% of women are wearing the wrong bra size, and a lot of that is due to the fundamental framework of the bras that we've been given this entire time. So our approach to bras is we've replaced the hook and eye closures with an adjustable back band so that now women can personalize their bra to fit them. And through that adjustability, one Wherewithal bra is actually equivalent to 3 sizes. So for women, men might not understand, but for women who have ever been in between band sizes, this bra will adjust to fit you correctly at any moment. But also as a brand, we're able to reduce inventory by 66% while servicing 3 times the customer base of our competitors. So we're inherently a little bit more sustainable, which is not something that we put out there, but it's really about the personalization and then the added benefit of less waste, less product, less returns, less everything. So we have a utility patent on our proprietary sizing system that introduces 3 sizes in one bra.
Wow. You've hit on a real problem. And I think you pointed it out, a problem not just for women. And I think it's always frustrating to buy most anything off the rack because you just never know, right? A size in one brand may fit you where a size in another doesn't. And bras are even more challenging for a lot of different reasons. They can be quite uncomfortable and quite challenging to find the right fit. And our bodies change too over time. And sometimes from week to week or month to month, our bodies can change. So that's clearly a problem. And then on the retailer side, solving some of that issue with having so much product out there and being able to reduce that inventory, purchase inventory and the number of SKUs, as they call it, out on the floor. That's a huge benefit for retailers. So kudos to you. Now, how did you figure all this out and what brought you to this?
Well, if we take it all the way back, I would have to say, I had to start wearing a bra when I was 9 years old in 4th grade. And for me, that was peak tomboy phase. So I have an older sister who was always the girly girl, kind of, wanted the dresses, wanted to really embrace that part of womanhood. And I wanted no part of it at all. But of course, as fate would have it, I had to start wearing a bra before her. And I just remember kind of living my entire life from that point, feeling a little limited in what I could and couldn't wear, but just accepting, it is what it is. You have to make sure you have, the proper support and that you are choosing outfits that you can wear and feel comfortable in based on that support. And as I unpacked a lot of my life, there was this internalized resentment, I think, for my body because of the limitations in what I was able to wear. As someone who I was naturally a little more introverted before I started this business, which I'm very thankful for it breaking me out of my shell at this point. But I used to use clothing as, a way to express myself without having to say too much and getting to show pieces of my personality that just really resonated with me. But even when I was trying to do that, I was still limited in what I could and couldn't wear because of the lack of support. And when I started my career, it was at the Home Shopping Network, specifically in the intimates category there. And we just laughed because week over week, intimates was the driving force behind the fashion division as a whole. Women don't like bras, but we buy them. We need them. Like, I know there's movements away from bras and I love that. But for women who really need the support for wellness or for just to feel confident and comfortable, a lot of that can also cause pain if you're not getting the proper support from your undergarments. So there's a large portion of us that are, wearing these bras every day and kind of suffering in silence. And I was one of those women. And during my time at HSN, I used my HSN discount to buy a sewing machine and started teaching myself how to sew. And everything I was making had some sort of bust supporting garment when I thought maybe bras could just be redesigned to fit how we need them to and want them to, starting with a strapless bra. And I kind of reverse engineered why I hate strapless bras, because they fall down. Well, why do they fall down? Without shoulder straps, we lose support of the upper bust and gravity. And as we take steps, of course, it's going to slip. But maybe if there was something that could secure the upper bust that we could adjust and control and then just reinforce underneath so it has the same silhouette as a bra, but just functions a little bit better, maybe that could work. And so I chopped up my bras, sewed it together, created this Franken bra, I call it. And I wore it to work the next day, not planning to tell anyone about it. And as fate would have it, everybody, all my friends, podcasts, like random social media memes, everyone was talking about how much they hate their bras, specifically strapless bras. And, 27 years of my life, I'm not talking about bras with my friends. We're all just kind of like going to the fitting rooms by ourselves and having a horrible experience and leaving and not saying anything about it ever again. So when all of this like chatter was happening around me, I posted in a Facebook group asking, do you all struggle with your bras as well? And over 300 women commented on that post. And I had watched enough Shark Tank and listened to enough Sarah Blakely to know, all right, I got to patent this thing and go forward. And I've kind of been turning over stones ever since, just figuring it out and letting the women along the way encourage every next step. Really, I do believe once you find your calling, it's your responsibility to bring it to the world for other people. So this is beyond me. This isn't even for me anymore. I would have been happy with that Frankenbrawl. It's for everybody else who has ever felt limited because of this silly garment, but it's something we start our entire day with. So when you're putting something on that already makes you feel insecure, it really does bleed into every other area of your life when you're out moving through the world. So we want to give women the wherewithal or the tools to feel good and accomplish and do whatever it is they set out to do, because the bra is the least interesting thing about anyone who's wearing it. We want to start with the foundation, give you what you need, and so you can go out and change the world, because we need more women out there doing everything that they want to do. That's really what
Love
we're
it. I love
here for.
it. Yeah, it's an empowerment kind of mission,
Yes.
but you found a way to solve your own personal problem and help others. And I think that probably resonates with many entrepreneurs out there.
Yes.
I think that, regardless of what you're selling, whether it's software or bras, that story, I think is a common theme.
Absolutely. And I think for me, if it weren't for, so I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I didn't think, I never thought I would start a business, especially not a bra company. I'll tell you that much. It's because it's so much bigger than just myself. And I believe if you are starting a business, it really has to be for something bigger, because there are so many challenges that come up along the way. And if you're doing it for your ego, just because you want to start a business, I don't know that always pans out. And the faith and the fuel that I've had to keep going through the pandemic, through, uncertain times, through tariffs, through all of it, it's because it's fueled by all of the women and all of the voices and support that I've had since, I told anyone that I was even thinking about doing this.
Yeah, I love this, Danielle. And I know, having been around you, I mean, you have such a positive and optimistic perspective.
Thank you.
And you always share that, which I think is wonderful. But I love that you talked about this journey that you've been on as being one that requires a lot of perseverance. So let's talk a little bit about it. How did you go from your Frankenbra, as you called it, to what you have today, where you've got a patented design? And I know you recently, got picked up by Target. And so you're getting some real traction. I know you've been selling online for some time, but you're also expanding that in many ways. So let's go back to the beginning. We brought you into the incubator program at the university. We talked about it. You had a different name and you were still trying to figure out the design and getting it manufactured. So kind of walk us through some of the steps that you had to take to get the company started and have, how I know you've made changes along the way, and how has that worked for you?
Yeah, I cannot express enough how important it was to be part of the Spartan Incubator program at the University of Tampa, because when it started from that idea. As I mentioned, I knew I needed to patent somehow. Luckily, my dad was supportive and we kind of went along that route. And once we joined the incubator program, that's when we were given access to so many people within the community that can help, who have been through manufacturing for any item under the sun. And they were able to guide us in ways that we wouldn't have been able to go without them. It's all about surrounding yourself with people who want to see you win. And I think University of Tampa is truly, I can't express how grateful I am because of that program. We were able to join Tampa Bay Wave because they saw us at, what was it? Synapse Summit. We exhibited there under the UT umbrella, and we were given that opportunity, one that we probably couldn't have afforded otherwise. And so that allowed us to be introduced to people at Tampa Bay Wave, who we then received funding from their pitch night. And then from that, we were able to patent, and being patent pending, we were tech enabled. So Embark allowed us into their program. And I think just truly these little stones of how do we get to know more people who can help us? And along the way, so many people will tell you no. And so many people will say, just there will be way more no's than there will be yeses. And so it's just finding the thread of yeses to keep you moving forward and finding the right people who can help you on this journey. And so because of all of these programs within the Tampa Bay area, we actually hired our very first hire, which our VP of Manufacturing and Sourcing, Heather, we met through Kayla Matthias, who is one of our advisory board members. I have multiple investors from the University of Tampa, Tampa Bay Wave, and people we've met through Embark. All of these things adding up together, we were able to take the idea from many prototypes that we were just trying to put together here and elevate it through the right people who knew how to do that. So through Heather, we met our technical designer, and then that's when we really got off the ground with the product development itself and establishing that this isn't just, two sizes and one or a bra that can adjust. It actually has 3 sizes and 1 bra and can adjust amongst multiple band sizes, really allowing women to wear and feel good in their bra in this garment that so many of us are getting wrong, but it's really not our fault. It's just the way it's been designed. So I would, all of those steps in the journey, it was just being hyper aware of what to do next. And I think it was because of the voices along the way that really helped support us.
So first of all, I appreciate all the kind words about the University of Tampa, but I also think there's a really good lesson in there for anybody out there who's sort of feeling alone in this process, because I think it can be lonely at times. Right. But I think you're right. You have to step out and look for that support. And there is in almost any city, not just Tampa, there are usually opportunities for support. For anybody that's listening that might be interested in a product development, can you talk through a little bit about, how did you, I know you got a patent somewhat early on, or at least pursued a patent. So for somebody that's listening, what did you learn about the patenting and design process, specifically even for clothing, but in general as well? Mm-hmm.
Yes. And this is one of my favorite things to share. So because I had taught myself to sew, I had enough skills to at least give some sort of idea of the prototype that could then be further developed, and being able to transcribe your idea into form in whatever way, whether it's a doodle, whether it's a 3D print, just however you can make it more real for the people you need to pass it off to. That is my number one piece of advice. Take some YouTube lessons and figure out how you can make it into form if you don't have those technical skills. From there, with the patent process, what I thought was very interesting, the first patent attorney that we spoke with and law firm that we spoke with, they were really eager about us going ahead and filing the utility patent. And the utility patent is a $10,000 cost. It's very expensive. Luckily, I was able to connect with a friend who kind of just, again, somebody who stepped in, passed me off to someone else and kind of evaporated from there. But I was able to be introduced to an attorney who told me about a provisional patent, and we'll have to check the laws and make sure this is still with the USPTO, but it's a 12-month protection for $1,200, which is much more affordable than, the $10,000, but that protects your item or concept or whatever product you're producing, so you can manufacture it into form and make sure that this is something that works, is something you want to pursue a utility patent on. It just gives you first right of ownership to it while protecting it, not amongst anyone that you're working with, but just protecting it in general as you add more people to your team to develop it fully, and then allows you the time to actually test it and make sure it works for you to want to pursue steps further. So a provisional patent, I highly recommend anybody who is interested in a product and patenting and protecting their product, ask about provisional patents, especially if they don't tell you about them, because that was the saving grace.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think it's really important to find a good attorney, as you pointed out, and attorneys specialize, right? So a lot of people don't realize that, but, especially when it comes to patents, but even in other areas. So you've probably had multiple attorneys along the way that have helped you with different aspects of your business and other service providers as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
So you got a patent and then you were able to send it off to be manufactured, to develop at least some prototypes. And could you talk to us about that whole process of finding a manufacturer? And, you mentioned tariffs already. So I'm interested in that whole, what has the journey with manufacturing been like for you?
Yeah. I mean, it's maybe a sensitive time to talk about it, but we tried to produce in the United States. We went to Miami, LA, New York, really looking for partners who could help us produce bras in mass form here. Bras are such a specialized garment, though, because of the machines and the wires and the technical skills. So then we went to Colombia, which is a huge fashion hub and incredible, just incredible. Everything about their fabrics, just the designs that come out of Colombia are just beautiful. So we were looking into that. But then once we hired Heather, our VP of manufacturing and sourcing, through her network and through her experience, we hired Shanna, who's a technical designer who's worked with Victoria's Secret, L Brands, really all of the major bra companies. And through her network, we found our partners overseas in China, and they're incredible. The value and the speed and the quality. I loved our partners, overseas. And right now we're in an in-between phase of where we're looking at different countries to continue production. I am looking at New York. We've found a few production houses now who can do much smaller purchase orders. But at the time, it was really leaning on those industry experts that we were lucky to have met through Embark, and then their experience and the manufacturers and partners that they had worked with. At that point, once you find people who are smarter than you kind of let go and let them guide you. And that's exactly what we did through both Heather and Shanna. They've been in the industry for 30 plus years, and they're just brilliant. Two brilliant women, and through their networks is how we were able to meet the partners who helped us develop both our strapless style and then our second everyday t-shirt style, along with 3 pairs of underwear. So we were able to produce those successfully. And again, it was just through the experts and their Rolodex that we were lucky to have any sort of access to, because that was not our area of expertise at all.
I think there's a great lesson in there. And I think, probably several lessons actually, but one that comes to mind for me is, you don't have to know it all, right? You don't have to know everything before you get started. In fact, you won't, and it's probably not possible. So a lot of it is surround yourself with good people, smart people that can do that. For the listener out there who's saying, well, I would love to go down a similar path, but I don't have a lot of money to hire people. How have you managed? Because I know that you've done a lot of bootstrapping.
Yes.
For people who don't know what that means, it's pretty much being creative and getting, doing a lot of things with limited resources. So how have you, how have you bootstrapped this company, and in particular with finding talent?
Mm-hmm. I wish I had a really like a roadmap that I could tell someone, but I am tearing up even thinking about it. So many of the people who have helped me and been part of this, it's truly just because their shared vision of what I'm building. And my number one piece of advice for anyone who is starting anything is just to let your passion and the reason that you are starting this be your voice and be the currency that will attract those people who are meant to be on this journey with you. It really makes me emotional because so many of the people I'm even working with now, it's because they believe in the vision and they believe in what this can do for not only women and what they're able to wear, but for the industry, for streamlining inventory. Just it's much, like I said earlier, it's just much bigger than me. And so if you have something that it was rooted, it was born within you, but it aligns with so many other people. If you're able to really just go forth and express your passion for it, the people who identify with you and what you're building will come and will want to be part of it, because that's what we all want. We all want to be part of something bigger, and you're able to really turn it into form, and it's helping other people. And truthfully, bras seem trivial to me sometimes when I look at these other businesses that people are building, but I have to remember how impactful it was starting my day with this garment that made me feel awful and had so many implications. I would leave, a wedding early because I was uncomfortable. I would feel insecure going on a first date or even being in front of a room of investors, or at the time I wasn't wearing our bras. So more so like being in front of a board meeting at the Home Shopping Network. But these are these moments that are so critical in our life that our bra should not be the thing that is distracting in any form. And I think just being able to find the people who really understand that and who have identified with that and want to be part of it, that has been the reason I've been able to bootstrap. And I don't think you're meant to build anything alone. And I'm so lucky that they have been able to see the vision for this and have even added to it and have grown it from how it originally started with me. It's so much more than that now.
I'll tell you, Danielle, I love that. I love what what you just said. I love your passion. And I think in that story, again, there's so much wisdom for entrepreneurs or people who would like to be entrepreneurs out there. You took something that were passionate about and you turned it into your purpose by serving others. Passion and that purpose is contagious.
Mm-hmm.
There's such a good message in that. And I really appreciate you sharing that. And
sorry for getting emotional.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that because that's authentically who you are. And that's, I think it's a beautiful story. There are a lot of people out there. I had someone on my podcast many years ago, not long after I started the podcast, and she had a great quote. I think she said, "If you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money." Mm-hmm. And I think it just goes back to that whole, that whole getting people excited about your vision and asking people to be a part of it. People will get excited about that. And sometimes that will lead to money down the road, or, it doesn't always have to be money, resources,
right.
Resources.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, that's what entrepreneurs do. They bring together resources for a purpose. And again, it's not just about money. I think that's a mistake a lot of people make. And so along the way in developing a product, there must be a lot of what I would say failures along the way that you have to, and challenges and obstacles you have to overcome. As you were building this product and the design, what kinds of things were big challenges? And at what point did you bring in customer feedback to also help you? Because I'm sure that was a part of your process.
Yes, actually, one of my friends, Tiffany, wore my Franken bra to Gasparilla in 2017, and she asked if she could borrow it again. And again, this is a disgusting garment. Like, it's just gross. And once she asked to wear it again, I was like, okay, we're definitely on to something here. But from the beginning, I utilized Instagram for Instagram polls to ask for any sort of feedback or advice in what they need in the development process. I would say the technical design process, we were on prototype 12 once we finally hired Heather, who was like, the band, you got the band, you got to work on the cup. The cup needs a wire. It needs a shaping. There are other options. There's other molds. So once we had those technical experts help us really round out the idea and the concept, that's when we started to get it into form. But Dr. White, to your point, before we even launched, we utilized our Instagram following to ask for product testers. And so once we had a few samples of our original design, we sent that out for feedback and took that feedback, made iterations and tweaks to the product itself, and then launched our first style, which was our black strapless bra with a matching underwear. And I would say by the time we launched, we felt really good about the product because we already made all the mistakes 12 and 13 and 14 prototypes ago. So we were able to get it to a really great place. We even took that extra step to make sure we sent it out to customers and to people within our community and network to give us true, honest feedback so that we could iterate just one step further and then we could launch it. And even from there, we have a front closure in both of our styles. And that first one we launched, it did, for some of them, it was a little bit difficult to put the front closure hook in. So before we added to our line, added any colors or more sizes, we made sure to tweak that, fix that front closure. And then we launched 2 more colors in which we had a 47% repeat purchase rate on the launch day of those 2 colors. And then once we launched our second style, we had an 87% repeat purchase rate. So we were able to build this community based on the feedback and based on the iterations. And then I think once they got in the strapless bra, they were really excited about the everyday style as well. So I would say trying to include your customers at the earliest point of inception and starting an Instagram, building a following, telling people what you're doing and having them be part of it, because that's who ultimately will become your customers and be revenue drivers. But it's so much more than the revenue. It's the community. It's the word of mouth. It's them wanting to share it and being excited to share it with their friends and family. So I would say at the earliest possible state to try and start, getting feedback and doing the market research to make sure what you're building is something people want. And I think if I didn't post in that Facebook group asking and 300 women, if only one person said anything, I'd be like, okay, this is just for me. But when I had that validation from 300 people I did not know, and it wasn't that big of a Facebook group, I was like, all right, well, here we go. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, that's really great advice. I think the earlier, the better, because then you can start solving those problems that are inevitably going to come up. And I think the other important part of what you're talking about is that, doing market research today can be done very inexpensively.
Yes.
And so you don't have to have a whole, bank account full of money.
Right.
To do research. You can do it very inexpensively.
Absolutely. And even something I think about maybe now that maybe I would have done differently, but I do believe everything happens as it should. So I don't feel like I did anything wrong in the journey. It was just all learnings and all lessons. But maybe something that somebody else can do starting out is ask for that, validation on Facebook or any of these social platforms. Try and start building that community. And then to that community, even you could launch a pre-order where they purchase it and then you can produce it, like on Kickstarter or any of these pre-order platforms. So that way you don't have to invest all that money up front and you can be very clear that this won't ship for 6 months, but you can get that investment from ultimately your customers to then build the business and build the product out because they've been excited about it this whole time. They've been part of it. They want to be your early adopters because they were the ones who helped you decide to go forward. So I think that would be a really cool way to get started for someone who is bootstrapped and doesn't have all the funding. I do believe that they can build it, just by connecting with people.
Yeah, I mean, it's great market validation, right?
Yes.
And before you've invested a whole lot of money in producing a lot of product and trying to sell it. Now you're in an industry and a market that has a lot of competition, and you deal with really big brand names, as well as, I know in recent years there've been a number of startups in the bra space. So talk to us a little about marketing. What's been your philosophy? What's been your experience? How do you enter a market that is crowded already, even though you're coming in with a better solution, or at least a better solution to a problem that a lot of people aren't addressing? What do you have to say about marketing, and what has been your strategy?
Marketing is, it changes every day, marketing. So that's honestly something we're still learning. I will say in 2023, I posted a TikTok video that went viral and generated 60K in revenue from one video of me in my pajamas just talking about the bra. And it resonated with people, and that truly all of our revenue has been pretty organic. We really haven't spent a ton on paid advertising or marketing at this point. But now as we enter into this new phase, we're revisiting, Meta and TikTok and all of these other agencies. I would say our biggest advantage really is that patented approach, because these other bra companies, where a lot of them are, they're more size inclusive, but they're creating more sizes of the same design. So that just kind of adds more hay to the haystack for women who are trying to find their bra to begin with. And then other brands might just be like different designs or styles. And while I think, we stand on the shoulders of giants ahead of us, but for us, the approach is really about the person and being able to personalize it however feels best for you. And kind of, I'm a two birds, one stone type of gal. So it's more so like, let me give you the framework and you can create your perfect size. And nobody's done that with the bra because it's such a SKU intensive industry. I think they're so far in it, they couldn't like maybe take a step back and revisit how the design itself exists. And I think because I don't have that technical broad training or design, I was able to see it from a little bit, maybe more of an innovative point of view, where I want my bra to fit me. And maybe I fluctuate daily or weekly or monthly, and I need it to adjust to fit my body so I can feel comfortable. And because of that point of view and being able to go forward, our message alone, our product alone has really been the driver behind all of the sales organically. And we've done a lot of pop-ups. We've done a lot of, grassroots type of programs to get us in front of our customer, where we weren't spending a lot of money, but that ended up getting us repeat orders and people sharing with their friends. And just that exposure in general has been the lifeline for the business, since we didn't have and haven't had all of the resources to market as much as maybe a Skims does. We can't really compete with that, but we can do it and build it organically. And it's really because of what we've created and the patent around our product. I don't know that I would be so confident in going forward in this industry with huge names and these industry leaders if I didn't have something truly different from what we've been given.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's, what you're talking about really, I think for entrepreneurs who are out there thinking about this, a lot of people believe they need a whole lot of money, but the reality is sometimes money too early just gets in the way because you don't know where to spend it.
Absolutely.
And so being bootstrapping and being creative with everything you do, from the design to the messaging to the marketing, can sometimes be a gift.
Yes.
And I know it's hard to think that way sometimes, but I think it leads to more innovative, as you pointed out, outcomes. So
yes.
Now I mentioned that you're now going to be in Target, or you are in Target. So tell us how that whole relationship happened? And for somebody who's got a product out there and they'd love to see it sold on the shelves, that can actually give them even more access than their online sales. How did that all happen for you?
Yeah. And we are just on Target.com right now to start, but the goal is to eventually one day be in store. And, we actually were on Nordstrom's.com for a time. We had a period that we were doing drop ship with Nordstrom. I think these larger stores are really excited about the idea where they can test brands on their marketplace online portals and give the opportunity for distribution that I wouldn't necessarily have. Like the traffic on Target.com is much higher than the traffic on shopwherewithal.com. And so for us, it's a great advantage. And I think if you have just a really great and innovative product, knowing that you're adding value to these larger stores to be able to sell what you've created to their customers, it's really about just knocking on a lot of doors, sending a lot of LinkedIn messages and hoping somebody responds eventually. And honestly, that's really kind of what happened. It's the perseverance, the outreach, the continued follow up. When someone says no, leave them alone. But until you get the no, I would say you can send another kind message, just reminding them. And what we found is that they were excited to have, to test us on their platform. Now that we're on there, we are looking into advertising with Target and with their platform. And so we're excited about just the learnings that will come. And I'm excited about testing online first instead of in store, because that's a whole nother, it's a whole nother learning of what does that look like? What are the requirements? There's just so much to being in store. So I feel like this is a great test run for us to get our hands wrapped around distribution with Target. And then ideally, if something could come to fruition of being in store, maybe doing a collection with them. This has not been spoken about with them by any means, but just goals that I have. Then at that time, we'll be a little more seasoned and a little more ready for it. So I think my other piece of advice there is I'm so proud to be on Target.com, but sometimes I'm like, well, it's just Target.com. It's not in store. And I've had people say to me, that's still awesome. Like, it's still awesome that you're on Target.com. That's huge. And I think just appreciating the moments that are coming and that are here, because it's so important for this to be the first step before being in store, and recognizing that any little inch is great. So if you have a product, knowing that these huge department stores are interested in having you on their marketplace platform, and then just sending a bunch of LinkedIn messages until someone answers you is my best advice.
Well, I think that's great advice, because there's two things in there I think that really resonated with me that I think can be helpful. And one is perseverance. And, I think I want to talk about that a little bit more here in just a second. But I think the other thing is that sometimes you don't want to grow too fast, and I like your approach that you want to get there, test it in the marketplace online, and learn what works and doesn't work, and then move forward. So I think sometimes taking on too much can kill a business.
Yes.
You can't deliver, and that can be a problem.
Absolutely.
So let me ask about perseverance. You've been doing this now for 6 years or so, and you've made great strides. You've learned a lot. Have there ever been any moments that you thought about giving up, and how did you get through that?
Yes.
If so.
Yes, there has. And I am, a godly and spiritual woman. So I definitely lean on prayer a lot of the time in those moments, but mostly it's been ups and downs, this journey when you're building something that doesn't exist. And when you're going against an industry that is a certain way, it's almost like not everything is against you, but sometimes it might feel that way. But I truly, it's the voices, it's the women it's getting out there and doing pop-ups and having a woman say to me, I've never found a bra. I'm going to cry. Like, I've never had a bra that actually fit me. I'm 60 years old. I wish this was here sooner. It's like those comments, bulletproof after that. And you just keep going. And so I would say all of the lows, it's this poetic, it's kind of beautiful, but it's like every time I have a very low moment, it's met with Target, or met with some just reminder that I'm on the right path. And I think as long as you're continuing to see momentum, keep following it, and I have not been at a place where I've been stuck and there's been nowhere to go. There's always been somewhere to go. And I do pray. I say, tell me if I'm delusional and if I should stop this. And that's when the Target thing happened. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll keep going. So it definitely, it's hard. And being able to find the support and resources that you need to keep sustaining life in the world that we live in is critical. So side jobs or anything that you can do to support yourself as needed, I highly recommend. But I think you fail when you give up on something that you still feel energy for and you still know is something you should do. I think if I get to a point where I don't see a path forward, I hope that I have the sense to stop and to accept that. But that just hasn't been the case. And I don't see it being the case for at all ever. But I think if you get to a place where there's no more momentum and you're no longer happy doing what you're doing, I think that's when maybe it's a sign to give up. But the perseverance for me just comes from getting out there and talking to women and reading the reviews on our website of people saying this has changed their life, the best bra they've ever worn, and how genius the back bands are. And I'm like, I thought so too. I don't know why this didn't happen sooner. I don't know why it took me to do it, but it's those reminders and little blessings along the way that just encourage you to keep going, because it's a long road and it's hard and there's a lot of challenges. And that's why I really recommend making sure what you're building isn't just for you, it's for a much greater reason and purpose, because that will keep you going through all of the ups and downs for sure.
That's beautiful. Once again, just such great insight and, wisdom that you're sharing with anybody that's listening. I'm sure there are entrepreneurs out there who are feeling discouraged, and it's so helpful, I think, to be inspired by the stories of others. So, and know that they're not alone, that there are a lot of ups and downs in the journey. Danielle, this has been amazing. I loved every minute of talking to you. I just have one more question to ask you, and then I'll let you get back to running Wherewithal. So if there was one piece of advice that you wish you had had, as an aspiring entrepreneur early on, or even at any point along the journey that you feel like now you've learned and internalized, what would that advice be that you would share?
I mean, there's so many phrases. I think the two biggest ones, if I can share two, they'll be quick, but just when you hear no, you're talking to the wrong person. That has been something early on when we were in prototype phase and we couldn't even show people what we were trying to do. Like, it wasn't physically manifesting into form. And we were like, no, trust us. It's not this. It will be beautiful. At that point, it was really hard to convey what we were doing. And because we were just so steadfast in the vision and what we were going to get to, we just needed to find the right people to help us create this bra, knowing that, like, when somebody said no, it wasn't personal. They just didn't understand what we were building. And we had to keep finding and looking for the people who did. And ultimately we did. So keep that in your pocket, that you will find those people too. And then the other one is, I love this phrase, that the walls are there to keep out the people who don't want it bad enough. And so again, kind of with the perseverance, it's like, if you have the grit and if you have the resilience and the drive within you to keep going, like, go until the wheels fall off, because what you have is meant for someone, it's meant for more than you. I truly believe if you have a passion, even if you solve a problem for yourself, there's billions of people in this world. I'm sure someone else has that problem. So it's just finding the people who resonate with that, and you being the one who keeps going throughout all of the things and the people and the walls that are trying to keep you out. If you're able to just keep climbing, and no matter how slow or long it takes, just keep one foot in front of the other, you'll make it and you'll get there. And I'm not there by any means, but we are seeing some amazing traction, and Target is really a platform for us to reach more women than ever before. And I'm just so grateful for that. And I can't wait to see how this continues to expand Wherewithal to the women who need it. So those are my two favorite things.
I love it. I love it. And I can't wait to see where you go with this too, Danielle. It's been a beautiful journey so far. I'm so proud of you and of the company and what you've done. And I think those are great messages and perseverance all the way through. You may remember the quote on the wall in the Entrepreneurship Center by Steve Jobs, who said that the difference between successful and unsuccessful entrepreneurs is perseverance. So, I think you're in good company. You're a very good company with your feedback and your advice. And so I want everybody out there listening to go buy themselves or their friend or someone they know or love a Wherewithal bra. Where can they do that?
Yes, they can go to Target.com and search Wherewithal, WHEREWITHAL. Or you can go to shopwherewithal.com and purchase directly from our website. And then we're also on Instagram at Shop Wherewithal and on TikTok at Shop Wherewithal as well.
Wonderful. Danielle, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been wonderful. I've loved our conversation and I really appreciate you sharing all the insight and experience that you've had. And I look forward to having you back on the In Factor and hear more of your great story down the road.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a full circle moment and just so fun to reflect with you, one of the first people in this journey. So thank you.
I loved it. Thank you for tuning into this episode of The In Factor. I hope Danielle's story reminded you, just as it reminded me, that success comes not from knowing, but from being willing to learn. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to follow, rate, and review the show wherever you listen. And if you're curious to explore more about the mindset behind entrepreneurial success, check out my book, See, Do, Repeat, The Practice of Entrepreneurship. You can find that and much more on my website at drrebeccawhite.com. That's drrebeccawhite.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay resilient, and keep practicing the In Factor.